All right, so hi everyone, I'm so excited to be here. Today I'll be talking about command line tools and dashboards with JavaScript. I'll be using Node.js, so I probably should have been clearer in the title, but I hope it's not a huge problem. And in this talk, I'll probably be a little bit quick. There are some code samples, but what I'm hoping for is that I get to inspire you to build your own command line tools and dashboards. So if you want to know more, I have lots of working codes and that I'll post on my GitHub, or you can approach me during the discussions. All right. So yeah, I'm Galuh. I'm currently working as a data engineer, but I got into tech thanks to web development, so I still do a lot of stuff with the web these days. I enjoy making lots of fun side projects, and the command line applications is actually one of them. So yeah, I'm from Indonesia, a beautiful place. If you ever have a chance to go to Southeast Asia, please drop by and you totally won't regret it. Right, so let's talk about the command line interface. And the command line interface used to be like the primary means of people to interact with computer systems back in the 60s, 70s, but now we're not in the 60s anymore. We have all of these cool GUIs, so why am I here talking you into building command line applications? So I think it's not about GUI versus CLI. Both have their own places. It really depends on what you want to build. Sometimes the GUI makes more sense. A lot of applications wouldn't be possible without windows and buttons. I have no idea how I can build these slides without GUI. But sometimes the CLI is enough. Like if you want to build simple automation tools, for example. And there are a few things I like about CLIs, that they don't take a lot of resources because they are text-based, and they are also easy to interact with other programs. For example, I have this tool that I made called Quirky, which shows display a random code from a JSON file or like a wiki quote during shell startup. So what it actually does is that if I run this on its own, I pass some arguments, it just does console.log and prints some random quote, for example, like stoicism quotes or like quotes from Grace Hopper. But when I put it in a bash profile, since I am able to pass some arguments in it without having to hard code the code, I can just put it in my bash profile and it will load every time during shell startup. So every time I start a new shell, there's a new code that appears on top of my terminal, which is nice. And the nice thing is that I can also chain it with other programs using pipes. So this is very neat. For example, I use grep. And this way I don't really have to think about writing the output to another file before using it from another program. So it's very neat. And we can all do all of these as long as I write my program, write the output to standard output and read it from standard input, which I'll talk about later. So, cool, but the question is, how do we build one? And with Node.js, there are so many ways to do it. The first time I was trying to build one, I was so overwhelmed because there were just so many choices. But before I get into that, I found something really cool from the Heroku CLI style guide. I think this is very important. It says that Heroku CLI is for humans before machines. I think it does not only apply to Heroku CLI, but I think it applies to every kind of CLI, because although we can like chain it with other programs and do other stuff with it, I think primarily humans are going to be the ones that operate it. So it's very important to have a CLI that is very understandable by humans. All right, so let's talk about what actually goes inside a CLI application. First, we have standard output, which is where the output of CLI apps normally go. And the nice thing is that in Node.js, we can just do console.log and it already goes to standard output. It internally uses process.standard.out.write. The only difference is that it prints it with a new line. So it's nice, we don't have to do anything else. Same goes with standard error, which is where we have some error or warning output from our CLI, or information about our long-running applications, and we can do this by doing console.error, which internally uses process.standard_error. So we also have exit status, and when CLI apps complete, they will return exit status to their parent process, and when successful, we can return the exit status using process.exit0. The number 0 signifies that the program completes successfully. Otherwise, it means that a failure happens. So the next one is standard input, which is one of the ways we can get the input for our command line applications. Standard input is a stream of input pasted to the command line application. In this example, I get standard input from the text ScotlandJS, which comes from the bash script, and I'm able to use that immediately in my Node.js program. And the great thing is that we can do this with not only a Node.js program, not only bash script, but also other programs like Python, perhaps. So comments, which were very important. Oftentimes we want to pass like some arguments to our script, and this is one of the ways. For example, like Git, we have Git init, we have Git help. So Git is like one command line tool, and then it has a lot of functionalities. Init is to initialize a new repository, and help is to show like what the available comments are. But not all command line applications need to have comments. Sometimes we have a tool that only has options. For example, like remove. We only have flags like -r and f to remove a directory, for example. And yeah, we can also have comments, and then comments which have options. For example, Git help has the options -a and -g. -a to show available subcomments, and -g to list concept guides. So yeah, and the next one, we also have arguments, which are usually required. Let's say that we're running a Node application. We have to provide the path to the file that we want to execute, and the application cannot run without the argument. Okay, now we have those out of the way. Let's see how we can build one. So for the purpose of this talk, I created a very simple application called Lyrical, which shows Genius lyrics in our terminal. And here are the features. It's such a song by our artist, and retrieve songs lyrics given the song. It's very important to think about the features, because just like when we're building like GUI or web applications, these features will eventually shape the functions as well as the comments that we want the users to use. And some details about the API. We're able to search songs given the artist name, but we are unable to search songs given the song name. So we have to give some sort of ID, which we can find when we search for the artist, which makes sense because some songs might have like different, there are a lot of songs that have the same title with different artists. So I think keeping in mind of these limitations is also important, because the CLI itself is already limited. So sometimes we have to work around all of these things to be able to make a command line application that is also still easy to be used by people. So this is the example of some dummy functions. We can get song lyrics by ID, and we can get songs by artist, and then it will print out like the song title and the ID. Okay, but I think we should begin with asking, like, do we really need to add another module or dependencies to this? So let's start with process.argv, which comes with Node.js. We're able to parse raw arguments here. The first value is the path of the executable that executes Node. The second value is always going to be the file being executed, and the rest are going to be the arguments that we passed. But when we try to see, like for example, in 2 = 3, we can see that the process.argv doesn't really think of it as like something special. It just sees it as a string. So maybe we want to actually say, hey, I have a parameter called 2, and I want to set the value to 3, but process.argv is not going to understand that. So, and we can actually make the program work if we want. Like we can just say that the first argument is going to be either artist or song, and the second argument is going to be like the value. But when we look at the code, it's kind of tricky because we only have access to the indexes as well as, it's going to be tricky if we have like multiple comments and subcomments, each comment with the options. It's going to be very hard to handle all of these. So of course, if you just need to parse really simple arguments, you can probably use process.argv. But if you want to build something more complicated, maybe we need the help of another module. So let's explore what we have, what options we have. And the next I have a minimist, and the library says it parses argument options. That's all it says in the GitHub, which is very minimal, very true to its name. And let's say that we want to have another parameter called is lowercase to print our lyrics in lowercase. And yeah, we're able to do that. We can pass the name of the artist, and then we can pass even the flag lowercase, and yeah, the application will print that in lowercase. So what I'm trying to show is that Minimus is able to parse not only strings but also booleans. So we don't really need to handle that again manually. Right, sorry. Oh. All right, yeah, we don't need to handle that manually, and the nice thing is that we can get our values using the name of the parameter that we're passing. So it's more comfortable, but what I want to do right now is that I have two functions, right? I want to search the list of songs by an artist, and I want to get the lyrics of a song. And those are two functionalities, and Minimus cannot really do that. The only thing that is just one comment. Meanwhile, I want to have like multiple comments with different options. So I'd also want to like have some sort of documentation, like help. I think that would be nice if I can have that feature so that users understand like what features are available in the tool. So let's see commander.js, which says that complete solution for Node.js command line interface. And the nice thing is we can pass the values just fine. We can pass the song just fine. And yeah, there's not much difference perhaps, but when we take a look at the code, I think it makes much more sense. Like we have two different comments, which is to get a song, to get the artist, and then it's clear that each of these comment has a different option. For example, like to get a song, we have an option to pass the lowercase flag, and meanwhile for the artist we don't have any options, and so it's very clear, and we don't really need to handle like any error. For example, if the user inputs the wrong option whatsoever, we don't really need to handle that manually because Commander will take care of that for you. So yeah, it's really nice, and it also generates the help for you automatically. So you just need to write like the description, and then the commenter will automatically create the documentation for you. So there are lots of more libraries that I haven't had a chance to talk about. These are the libraries that you can try. Feel free to try them out if you want and see which one fits your application best. So yeah. And the next one, I want to talk about terminal user interface. So when command line is all about the successive lines of text, like you type a comment and then it brings back something to you, and then you type another comment. Terminal user interface, in terminal user interface, you can use the help of like mouse or keys to help you navigate your way through the applications. And here I have another example called inquire.js. So it emphasizes on like common interactive command line user interfaces, and I think it's a very nice library for my use case, which is the Lyrical app, because in Lyrical, remember that we have this limitation where I have to like find the artist first, and then I have to like in that way I can like get the lyrics of a song. So there's like a certain user flow that I have to follow, and it wasn't really reflected in the previous libraries. Like they couldn't really like do that. They just assume that there is no flow that the user has to follow. And meanwhile, in inquire.js, this is how it looks like. So it will quickly prompt you give you an artist name, and then it will like return a list of songs. You don't need to like copy paste all of the song ID. It just brings back all the songs, and then you can just choose it. So it's very nice, and it's very clear that there is a certain user flow that the user has to go through. And I can accomplish this by just a few simple steps. First, define the prompt, which is search artist, which we will get from the user input. And then for choosing the songs, we will get to choose from a list of songs. And then all of the values that the user inputs can be used to use it for another prompt or another function. So for example, like I get the input of the artist name, and then I can use that for the choose song prompt. Okay, so here are two libraries that I want to share with you, because I think these libraries are very, very cool. I use these for an application, for a tool called M, which is a terminal dashboard that I built so that I could manage all my Twitter likes and bookmarks, because I treat them like bookmarks, and I want to be able to like search them, like put them into categories and all that stuff. And I thought it'd be cool if I just do this in my terminal, because I didn't really have time to build a full-blown web application for this. So yeah, I used Blast and Blast contrib for this. So yeah, at first I didn't really understand like what the Blast and Blast contrib was. So I tried to find do some more reading, and this is what it says in the GitHub. It's a large block of tags, and I didn't understand it at all at first, but it says that it re-implements and curses. So I think that's the key that I was trying to understand more about. So let's try to find out what and curses actually is. So the story is that performing operations on terminals, like even as simple as moving a cursor to a new location, scrolling the screen, erasing areas, it's just super difficult. And what we need to do is that we need to send control codes that tell the terminals what to do. And it's like a bunch of complicated codes. And what curses and uncurses are trying to do is that they abstract everything away. So you don't have to say like, you don't have to send like all of these control codes, but what you can do is that you can just say, hey, I want to make a window of this size, and then curses will automatically figure that out for you. So, and curses is a newer version of curses. And both were written in C, but nowadays there are lots of like implementations of curses in different programming languages. So we can easily build terminal applications using a programming language that we're comfortable with. I think Python has its own curses module. I think Rust, Go has one, Perl, and of course JavaScript has one, which is called Blast, and it's a very nice pun, you know, blast, cursed. So yeah, and these are the examples of widgets that Blast has. So we can basically just call, hey, I want to make a box, I want to make a text, and then I want to make a list, or like forms if you feel like making a sign up form in the terminal, I don't know, and prompts, and then there's a display progress bar, like all of these cool high-level widgets, so you don't have to touch all of the nasty low-level stuff. So yeah, and the nice thing is that it does event handling and receiving very well. So you can listen to events from the mouse, key press. You can also define what to do when a box, for example, is moved, is resized. And there are lots of methods. For example, if you want to hide the box when there is a mouse click, you want to show a particular object, you want to focus the object. So there are lots of different methods that you can check out on the GitHub. So yeah, this is an example. Okay, so yeah, when it's clicked, for example, we want to show a new content, and we can easily do that by defining a blast box, and then we define like the position, the content, and tags to, if we want to use tags like bold in the content, and then we can also like define the border. So yeah, and okay. Oh, I have to click it first. Okay. So yeah, this is an example, and if we want to define what happens when the box is clicked, we can define like box on click, and there are like a bunch of other stuff that you can check out on the GitHub. And if we want to do something when it's entered, we can do this as well. And yeah, if we want to do some key bindings, we can also define it. For example, we can define multiple key bindings, like what happens when you press escape, Q, and Ctrl+C. We want to quit the application, so we return process.exit0. And let's say if we want to like refresh our application, we can do that. Let's say if we want to bind it with the keys like R and Ctrl+R. And the refresh function can be anything that you want. Maybe you want to like return it to its initial state. It really depends on what you want. Cool. So the next one is Blast contrib. This is like a library that is built on top of Blast. It makes it easier to create dashboard. It provides even more widgets that work out of the box. So you can build stuff like these with all of these like fancy like world map and charts and line charts. So yeah, this is an example simple example of it. And it's very simple as well. So you initialize a Blast screen, which is going to be a primary object where you render all of your objects. And then you have, you define a grid. For example, I want to make a grid of like 12 rows with and 12 columns. And then I define like the each individual grid. Like for example, I want to make like a map with label fancy world map, and then, oh yeah, set the positions first, the object, and the label. And then Oh, sorry. And then we have to render like everything on the screen. So every time you do anything that manipulates the screen, you have to like render it. So what you can do now is that you can utilize more widgets that come from Blast and Blast Contrib. You can also create your own custom Blast widgets. There's a cool tutorial on how to do that. And other fun stuff, you can like give some colors, which is I think it's not just for decorational purposes, but it's also important if you want to highlight like some important stuff. That makes it easier to spot like important information like errors. There are also progress bars, ASCII art, and then there are a bunch of other examples that I think are super awesome. For example, this is Medium CLI, so you can read Medium in your terminal maybe, if you feel like it. Maybe if you're like working and then you don't want your boss to find out like you're reading something, you can just open the terminal and it looks like you're working. So, all right. So this is a Galuh CLI, which I think is also pretty cool because it takes less resources. And this is a very great terminal, TinyCare terminal. I think most of you know this already. This also uses Blast and Blast Contrib, and Slab Editor is a Sublime-like editor in your terminal. So takeaways: command line programs dashboards are great. They can be a great alternative or even companion for GUI. And they are so easy to build with JavaScript, so it's easy to get creative with it, and lots of libraries you can use. It really depends on your purpose. If you want a single command line app, you can use like Minimist. If you want more complicated parsing, maybe you can use Commander. And if you want to have an application with certain user flow, I think Inquire is great. And if you want to build dashboards, Blast and Blast Contrib are really awesome, and you can get creative and even combine more than one libraries to make the application that you want. So I think that's it. Thank you so much.